Behind the superpowers and teenage drama, Smallville concealed a far more haunting truth. Over the years, a growing number of its beloved cast members have met tragic ends, some sudden, others drawn out and heartbreaking. This is the list of Smallville actors we've lost, some legends, some unsung, all unforgettable. As the list keeps getting tragically longer, we look back not just with sorrow, but with deep respect for the legacies they left behind. Christopher Reeve as Dr. Virgil Swan. Christopher Reeve was born October 25, 1952 in New York City. When he appeared in Smallville in 2003, he was 51 years old, carrying the weight of decades as the screen's definitive Superman. As Dr. Virgil Swan, he portrayed the brilliant scientist who helped Clark Kent uncover his Kryptonian origins in the episodes Rosetta and Legacy. Reeve's rise to fame was meteoric, but the trajectory changed in 1995 when a horseback riding accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. Overnight, he became known less for his films and more for his activism. He married Dana in 1992, and together they channeled their hope into the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, a powerful voice for spinal cord injury research. Despite his physical limitations, Reeve returned to the screen in Smallville, offering one of his most emotionally charged performances. He died just months later, in October 2004, at age 52, from heart failure brought on by post-accident complications. His death sent shockwaves through fans and creators alike, forcing Smallville to completely reimagine planned storylines. In Dr. Swan, viewers saw Reeve's enduring strength and intelligence, even as his body betrayed him. In Reeve himself, the world saw a man who refused to be defined by tragedy. Kidder had once defined a generation with her magnetic performance as Lois Lane, opposite Christopher Reeve. Yet fame's glow dimmed and was replaced by shadows. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, Kidder endured a public breakdown in 1996, experienced homelessness, and weathered intense personal scrutiny. She married John Hurd briefly in 1979. They divorced less than a year later. She dedicated her later life to raising her daughter, Maggie, and became a vocal advocate for mental health awareness. On May 13, 2018, Kidder died by suicide at age 69 via overdose. Her death reignited conversations about mental illness, aging, and how celebrity often fails those who suffer in silence. Margot Kidder as Dr. Bridget Crosby. Margot Kidder was born on May 17, 1948, in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Canada. When she appeared on Smallville in 2004, she was 55 years old, her return to the Superman universe coming nearly 25 years after she first captivated the world as Lois Lane. In Smallville, she played Dr. Bridget Crosby, a mysterious emissary from the secretive Veritas Society who once worked with the late Dr. Virgil Swan. Her performance brought gravity and warmth, hinting at layers of hidden knowledge, loyalty, and fear. Though she reached iconic status in the late 1970s as the fiercely independent Lois Lane in the Christopher Reeve Superman films, fame came at a price. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she experienced frequent and sometimes terrifying mood swings. In 1996, her private battle became tragically public when she suffered a severe manic episode that left her homeless and missing for several days. She married actor John Hurd in 1979, but the marriage lasted just 6 days. She raised her daughter Maggie largely on her own, choosing to live simply in Montana and focus on political activism and mental health advocacy rather than chasing roles that no longer came. Her Smallville appearance, opposite Reeve's Dr. Swan, felt like a poetic reunion. Their scenes were loaded with nostalgia, subtext, and a quiet understanding that both actors were survivors of something far greater than fiction. Yet behind the scenes, plans to develop her role further were cut short after Reeve's death in 2004. Without him, the storyline lost its emotional anchor, and Crosby's fate was quietly sealed off-screen. In May 2018, just 4 days before her 70th birthday, Margot Kidder died by suicide via an intentional overdose of drugs and alcohol. The coroner ruled her death a result of self-inflicted harm. The news was heartbreaking, but not wholly unexpected to those who had followed her journey. Chris Gauthier as Winslow Schott, Toyman. Chris Gauthier was born on January 27, 1976, in Luton, Bedfordshire, England, but grew up and built his career in Canada. When he first appeared on Smallville in 2009, he was 33 years old. Gauthier took on the eerie, unsettling role of Winslow Schott, a twisted toymaker obsessed with destruction and control. A modern-day reimagining of the classic DC villain Toyman, his character embodied the dangers of obsession, loneliness, and warped genius. Though his screen time was brief, his presence lingered. He made the audience uncomfortable, which meant he did his job extraordinarily well. Unlike the glamorous leads of superhero shows, Gauthier was a character actor through and through, stocky, expressive, and often cast as eccentric outsiders. He built his reputation playing memorable oddballs in shows like Eureka, Once Upon a Time, and Supernatural. He had a gift for bringing humor, danger, and empathy to characters who might otherwise be forgettable. He was married and had 2 sons, whom he often spoke of with deep affection. Friends and co-stars described him as generous, quick-witted, and the kind of person who made everyone on set feel at ease. He wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing the joy of performing and the chance to disappear into someone else's skin, if only for a while. But like many actors in the sci-fi fantasy genre, he struggled quietly with health issues that the public never saw. In his final years, Chris battled a brief but aggressive illness that few outside his close circle even knew about. On February 23, 2024, he passed away at the age of 48. The cause of death was not made public, but his agent later confirmed it was sudden and unexpected. The news sent a ripple of shock and sadness through the fandom communities he had touched for decades. Julian Sands as Jor-El. Julian Sands was born on January 4, 1958, in Otley, West Yorkshire, England, a classically trained actor with an unmistakable presence and voice that could command silence. By the time he was cast as Jor-El in Smallville in 2009, he was already 51 years old, and decades into a career that spanned theater, film, and television. In Smallville, he embodied the physical manifestation of Clark Kent's Kryptonian father, a wise, haunting figure burdened with the fate of 2 worlds. While the character of Jor-El had long been a voice in earlier seasons, Sands gave him a face, one marked by gravity, wisdom, and deep sorrow. Playing Jor-El was a perfect fit for Julian. He had always gravitated toward roles with a touch of the poetic and the tragic. From his breakout role in A Room with a View, 1985, to chilling turns in Warlock, 1989, and Gothic, 1986, Sands built a legacy playing men who were elegant, tortured, and often a little dangerous. He brought that same depth to Jor-El, a father who made impossible choices, now trying to guide his son from beyond the grave. Off-screen, Julian was a man of great intellect and quiet mystery. He married journalist Evgenia Titkovets in 1990, and together they had 2 daughters. He also had a son from a previous relationship. Friends described him as thoughtful, generous, and fiercely private. He loved poetry, the mountains, and solitude, an adventurer at heart with the soul of a philosopher. On January 13, 2023, Julian Sands went missing while hiking alone on Mount Baldy in Southern California, a notoriously treacherous peak during winter. He was 65 years old. Despite massive search efforts, including aerial drones and search and rescue teams, weeks passed with no sign of him. The story gripped headlines around the world, not just because of who he was, but because of how he disappeared, without a trace, into the wild he so deeply loved. For months, the mystery lingered. Then, on June 24, 2023, human remains were found by hikers near the area he was last seen. Days later, the remains were officially identified as Julian Sands. He died doing what he loved, but the silence he left behind was deafening. Lee Thompson Young as Victor Stone, Cyborg. Lee Thompson Young was just 22 years old when he made his debut as Victor Stone, also known as Cyborg, on Smallville in 2006. A former football star transformed into a cybernetic hero after a near-death experiment, Victor was one of the first characters from the Teen Titans universe to appear in the series. And Lee brought him to life with quiet strength and a haunting sense of humanity. It was a small role in terms of screen time, but his performance left a lasting impression. Victor Stone was more than just circuitry and strength. He was a young man trying to hold on to his identity in a body he no longer recognized. That duality mirrored something deeper in Lee himself. Born on February 1, 1984 in Columbia, South Carolina, Lee showed early promise as both an academic and a performer. He graduated with honors from the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts, where he studied screenwriting while continuing his acting career. But long before Smallville, Lee was already a household name, beloved by a generation of young viewers as the star of Disney Channel's The Famous Jet Jackson. At just 14 years old, he played a teenage action hero trying to balance fame, school, and growing up in a small town. That role catapulted him to early stardom. As he moved into adulthood, Lee sought more serious roles, turning in acclaimed performances in Friday Night Lights, Scrubs, and eventually Rizzoli and Isles, where he played Detective Barry Frost, a tech-savvy officer with a kind heart and gentle humor. Behind the scenes, though, Lee battled a deeper, invisible foe: depression. On August 19, 2013, Lee Thompson Young was found dead in his Los Angeles apartment from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was just 29 years old. The news shocked fans and devastated colleagues. There were no signs, no cries for help, only a brilliant, kind soul who had reached the end of his quiet struggle. Cory Monteith as Finn Hudson. Cory Monteith was 27 years old when the world first met him as Finn Hudson, the clean-cut high school quarterback with a secret love for singing, in Glee's 2009 premiere. With his boyish charm, wide-eyed sincerity, and subtle vulnerability, Cory made Finn more than a stereotype. He made him human. In a show that celebrated the outcasts and dreamers, Finn stood at the crossroads of popularity and authenticity. And in many ways, so did Cory himself. Born on May 11, 1982, in Calgary, Alberta, Cory had a rough start. His parents divorced when he was 7, and by the time he was a teenager, he had dropped out of school and was battling substance abuse. He worked a series of odd jobs: carpenter, Walmart greeter, taxi driver, while trying to figure out who he was, but music kept calling. He played drums in a few local bands and dabbled in acting before landing small TV roles in shows like Supernatural and Kyle XY. Still, nothing could have prepared him or the world for the impact Glee would have. Finn Hudson became the heart of the show. He was the one who brought the cool kids into the choir room, the unlikely leader who wore his insecurities like a badge of honor. And Cory, underneath the fame, never lost sight of what that character meant to millions of viewers. He was open about his own struggles, even checking himself into rehab at age 19, long before fame found him. As Glee soared in popularity, so did Cory's profile. He starred in films like Monte Carlo and Sisters and Brothers, and off-screen, he found love with co-star Lea Michele. Their romance, though young, felt authentic, two people trying to navigate fame while holding on to each other. In March 2013, Cory voluntarily entered rehab again. It was a brave, public step, one that spoke to his desire for change. When he completed treatment, friends and fans cheered him on. He seemed hopeful, grounded, ready to begin again. On July 13, 2013, Cory Monteith was found dead in a Vancouver hotel room. He was just 31 years old, The coroner's report confirmed it was a lethal mix of heroin and alcohol. For a moment, the world stopped. Glee fans, castmates, and people who had seen their own struggles mirrored in his story were left reeling. It's one of redemption, vulnerability, and the complexity of recovery. He was a man who didn't hide his flaws, who tried, publicly and privately, to fight back, and who gave the world a character that helped redefine what masculinity, empathy, and leadership could look like on screen. In Glee's tribute episode titled The Quarterback, no cause of death is mentioned. No explanation is given. Just a raw, emotional farewell that mirrored the ache in real life. Jackie Burroughs as Hetty King. Jackie Burroughs was born on February 2, 1939 in Lancashire, England, before immigrating to Canada with her family as a young girl. By the time she took on the iconic role of Hetty King in Road to Avonlea in 1990, Jackie was already 51 years old and a respected figure in Canadian theater and film. As the stern, no-nonsense matriarch of the King family, Burroughs brought layers of depth to what could have been a one-dimensional character. Her Hetty was sharp, stubborn, fiercely principled, but with just enough cracks in her armor to let tenderness shine through. The role would go on to define her in the eyes of a generation. For 7 seasons, Jackie Burroughs embodied everything beloved about Avonlea, a world where tradition clashed with change, and women like Hetty King held their ground with elegance and iron will. It was a performance that earned her multiple Gemini Awards and a permanent place in Canadian pop culture. But Jackie Burroughs' path to Hetty King was anything but traditional. A bohemian spirit in real life, she spent her early career immersed in avant-garde theater and experimental film. She was known for defying the norms, both professionally and personally. Her 1960s marriage to director Zalman Janowski, a member of the rock band The Lovin' Spoonful, was as unconventional as her career. Though their union didn't last, it resulted in one daughter, Zoe, who remained close to Jackie throughout her life. Burroughs' artistic sensibilities made her a darling of Canada's indie film scene. Off-screen, she often spoke out against censorship, championed the arts, and refused to be boxed into the expectations of respectable actresses. Friends described her as fearless, eccentric, and deeply loyal, qualities that helped her navigate a career that spanned decades, despite never quite fitting the Hollywood mold. She continued acting well into her later years, appearing in projects like The Republic of Love and Smallville, where she once again demonstrated her ability to bring gravity and grace to every role. But privately, she faced mounting health issues in the 2000s, including a quiet but difficult battle with stomach cancer. Jackie Burroughs passed away on September 22, 2010, at the age of 71. She died at her home in Toronto, surrounded by loved ones, leaving behind a legacy rich in art, authenticity, and unapologetic individuality. Darren Shahlavi as Todd in Smallville. Born on August 5, 1972 in Stockport, Cheshire, England, Darren Shahlavi was just 37 years old when he appeared in Smallville in 2010. He took on the role of Todd, the sadistic servant of Darkseid in the show's 10th and final season, an ominous, shadowy villain who preyed on the dark desires of Metropolis's citizens. Darren's appearance was brief but impactful, featured in the episode Abandoned, where his character operated the seedy club Des Sods and embodied the show's descent into darker, mythological territory. For fans of martial arts cinema, however, Darren Shahlavi was already a familiar and revered face. He had carved a niche for himself in the world of action films, both in Hollywood and abroad, long before his appearance in Smallville. Known for his formidable physique, clean-cut looks, and authentic fighting skills, Darren had been training in martial arts since he was a child, inspired by Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. He earned black belts in multiple disciplines and eventually parlayed his talents into a successful career as both a stuntman and actor. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, he was a go-to villain in martial arts films. He gained significant recognition for his role as the brutal British boxer Taylor the Twister Milos in Ip Man 2, 2010, where he squared off against Donnie Yen in one of the most iconic East meets West fight scenes in modern martial arts cinema. That performance alone catapulted him into the international spotlight, earning him praise for both his acting and technical skill. Off-camera, Darren was known to be warm, humble, and deeply committed to his craft. He lived for the thrill of performing his own stunts, often saying that action scenes were his way of storytelling. Despite playing villains on screen, he was beloved in the martial arts and stunt communities for his generosity and kindness. He shared a close bond with his younger brother, Darren Shahlavi, who also pursued martial arts and fitness. On January 14, 2015, Darren Shahlavi tragically passed away in Los Angeles at just 42 years old. His death was ruled as the result of a heart attack brought on by the combination of prescription medication and alcohol, an accidental overdose that shocked fans and colleagues alike. The news of his death sent ripples through both the martial arts and television worlds. He had just begun to break into more mainstream roles, including appearances in shows like Arrow, Sanctuary, and films like Kickboxer, Vengeance. He was poised for greater things. Ashley Massaro as Athena. Born on May 26, 1979 in Babylon, New York, Ashley Massaro was already a household name in the world of professional wrestling when she stepped into the Smallville universe. In 2008, during the show's 7th season, she appeared in the episode Fierce as Athena, one of 3 meteor-infected beauty queens vying for the title of Miss Sweet Corn, while secretly using their powers to manipulate and sabotage the competition. Athena, with her icy demeanor and chilling cryokinetic abilities, fit perfectly into the Smallville formula of Meteor Freak of the Week characters. Though the role was small and self-contained, Ashley brought a presence that reflected both confidence and charm, a testament to her crossover appeal beyond the wrestling ring. Ashley first rose to fame in 2005 after winning WWE's Raw Diva Search, which catapulted her into the spotlight as a fan favorite. Known for her punk rock aesthetic, platinum blonde hair, heavy eyeliner, and fierce attitude, she quickly became a standout personality in WWE. She was featured in high-profile storylines, appeared on the cover of Playboy, and even competed at WrestleMania 23. But Ashley's ambitions extended beyond the ropes. She embraced acting and modeling, making appearances in shows like Smallville, participating in Survivor China in 2007, and working as a radio DJ and spokesperson. She was also a devoted single mother to her daughter Alexa, whom she often described as the light of her life. Behind her public persona, however, Ashley carried scars, emotional, physical, and psychological. In 2017, she joined a class-action lawsuit against WWE, alleging traumatic brain injuries and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, symptoms caused by her wrestling career. She spoke candidly about her struggles with depression and long-term injuries, including multiple concussions she claimed were left untreated. On May 16, 2019, just 10 days shy of her 40th birthday, Ashley Massaro was found unresponsive in her home in Suffolk County, New York. Her death was ruled a suicide by hanging, leaving fans and former colleagues stunned and heartbroken. Just hours before her passing, she had posted upbeat messages on social media, even responding to fan mail, giving no indication of the turmoil beneath the surface. Todd as Earl Jenkins. Renowned for his alignment with iconic horror and science fiction, Todd took on the guest role of Earl Jenkins in Season 1's episode Jitters of Smallville. As a coffee shop owner pushed to freakish violence by a mystical influence, Todd delivered a performance that was both chilling and grounded, an early showcase of his talent for portraying everyday characters corrupted by supernatural forces. He was 59 years old at the time of filming, 2001. Born in June 1954 in Washington, D.C., Todd's towering presence and resonant voice made him an unforgettable figure across genres. He famously portrayed Candyman in the horror franchise of the same name, and his resume includes roles in Final Destination, The Man from Earth, and numerous TV appearances in Star Trek, The Flash, and The X-Files. Off-screen, Tony was known as a thoughtful underground poet, acting coach, and devoted father. He married twice and had a daughter with his first wife. Few knew he silently fought depression and health issues later in life. He rarely spoke about his struggles. On November 6, 2023, Tony Todd passed away at age 69 at his home in Los Angeles. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed. The news rocked fans and colleagues alike, who remembered him as generous, gracious, and mesmerizing in his work and his presence. Rutger Hauer as Morgan Edge. Born on January 23, 1944 in Breukelen, Netherlands, Rutger Hauer is one of the rare European actors who has reached iconic status in American cinema, thanks to his unique combination of sad eyes, deep voice, and ability to portray moral depth in complex characters. In Smallville, he played Morgan Edge, a cold and ruthless gangster who has deep ties to Lionel Luthor and knows many secrets about the Kent family's dark past. Although he only appeared in the first 2 episodes of Season 3, Rutger brought a powerful confrontational character, a boss, who was both rational and secretly threatening, making the audience unable to take their eyes off him. However, if we only knew him through that role, perhaps we had never really known Rutger Hauer. He made film history with his role as Roy Batty in the 1982 masterpiece Blade Runner, where he delivered the line, "All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain," which remains one of the most haunting monologues of all time. In addition to Blade Runner, he has starred in dozens of classics such as The Hitcher, Lady Hawk, Batman Begins, and Sin City. Throughout his career, he has explored unconventional roles, characters who are outcasts or who are facing internal breakdowns, reflecting part of his own past as a teenage dropout living on the fringes of society. Rutger was married to Ineke, 10 Kate from 1985 until his death, and had a daughter, Aisha Hauer, who is also an actress. Outside of film, he has been active in AIDS charities and helping orphans in Africa. He passed away on July 19, 2019, after a short battle with a serious illness in Friesland, Netherlands, at the age of 75. The news of his death was kept secret until a private funeral was held, just like the man himself, calm, thoughtful, and avoiding noise. Julian Christopher as Dr. Stephen Hamilton. Julian Christopher entered the world of Smallville in its first season, portraying Dr. Stephen Hamilton, a disgraced scientist whose obsession with meteor rocks spiraled into madness. Appearing in 5 pivotal episodes between 2001 and 2002, Christopher's character started as a brilliant mind, but quickly unraveled into a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed, obsession, and power. At the time of his first appearance, Julian was 58 years old, already a seasoned actor with a strong presence in Canadian television and film. Born as James Chester Jolliffe in 1944, Julian began his acting journey in the late 1960s. Though African American, he found more consistent work in Canada, where he eventually settled, becoming a quiet but steady figure in the North American film and TV scene. His performances often carried quiet authority, calm, composed, yet filled with depth. Throughout his career, he took on roles in shows like Stargate SG-1, The X-Files, Battlestar Galactica, and Da Vinci's Inquest. While he never became a household name, his face and voice became familiar to fans of sci-fi and procedural dramas. Behind the scenes, Julian lived a relatively private life. He rarely gave interviews, and little is known publicly about his romantic relationships or family life. Those who worked with him described him as gentle, thoughtful, and deeply professional. The kind of actor who elevated every scene with subtlety rather than flash. Julian Christopher passed away on October 12, 2023, at the age of 79. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed, and his passing, like much of his career, flew under the radar of mainstream headlines. Yet for those who remembered his nuanced performance in Smallville, his death marked another quiet farewell to an actor who gave his all, even in supporting roles. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through the lives of the cherished actors behind Smallville. Which Smallville actor do you remember most fondly? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories honoring the stars we've lost.